In this video, we're going to look at trade and specialization. Previously, we've used a simple two-country example to try and examine how specializing and trading can make two countries better off. For example, in the United States, by shifting away from agriculture and using those resources for manufacturing, Canada can shift away from manufacturing, focus on agriculture, and then both countries can trade. They can trade to take advantage of their domestic comparative advantage. They're better at doing something, and they're going to focus on that. However, even though on paper trade makes both countries better off, it doesn't make everyone better off within those countries. If you are a farmer in America, you don't like the fact that you're now subject to cheaper imports coming from Canada. If you are in manufacturing in Canada, you don't like the fact that you've got imported goods coming from America. What happens in this case is that industries will try and appeal to government to implement protectionist measures. Protectionist to try and protect the domestic industries from foreign competition. And by using these protectionist policies, they can reduce the competitiveness of foreign imports. That's called a trade barrier. When we talk about protectionist policies, another way of thinking about it is a barrier that restricts trade between two countries. Here's how that would work. We've got two governments. Each government wants to try and protect domestic industries because if you can protect domestic workers, that's good for you as a government. Maybe you'll get reelected. If you are a farmer in the United States and you have a cost of 50 units, or $50, excuse me, $50 per unit of agriculture. In Canada, that same unit of agriculture costs $25. So there is a discrepancy. The imports from Canada, Canada is more productive in agriculture, and so it can produce 1 unit of agriculture at a lower cost than American farmers can. American farmers just cannot compete with that. Cost them $50. Canada, it only costs $25. It's cheaper for American consumers to buy the imported products from Canada instead of the American grown ones. So what might happen is farmers would appeal to their government for help, for protectionism. And so the government might choose to offer a subsidy. A subsidy is a domestic payment that helps reduce production cost. So they might give each farmer a check, money, $30 for each unit of agriculture they grow. It's to help them lower their costs of production. With that factored in, now they've got a new price. They're actually producing things at $20 a unit compared to Canada's $25 a unit. With that subsidy from the government, domestic production is now cheaper. That has acted as a barrier to trade. The subsidy cuts off trade. It sort of puts a virtual wall, a policy wall between the countries. If you're an American farmer, that's great. You don't have to worry about cheaper imports from Canada. If you're an American consumer, that's not great. You would like to buy the cheaper stuff from Canada, but now you're forced to buy the more expensive domestically produced item. There's another type of protectionism, and let's focus on manufacturing. Let's say Americans can manufacture vehicles at $50 a unit, where in Canada our production costs are a little higher. Let's say they're $75 a unit. That's not great. We can import those goods, and if you are a Canadian consumer, you'd much rather buy the cheaper version coming from America than the more expensive domestically produced one. So naturally, Canadian manufacturers might appeal to the government for protectionism. And in addition to subsidies, a tariff can also be used as a protectionist measure. A tariff is a tax. So the Canadian government, in this example, could add a tariff, a tax, on every imported American vehicle that comes across the border. So instead of a $50 cost, they have to add $30 as a tax, a tariff, onto each vehicle. That gives us a new price per unit of $80. So now if you're a Canadian consumer and you've got a choice between a $75 domestically produced vehicle or an $80 American one, you will probably choose the domestic one. So the tariff has acted as a trade barrier because now the vehicles from the United States are no longer more competitive. If you work in manufacturing in Canada, you love it. Now you don't have to worry about the threat of foreign competition. If you're a consumer in Canada, well, that's not great because you're missing out on these potentially cheaper goods that could be imported into the country. Now, protectionism, because overall it tends to hurt consumers, governments try to avoid too much of it. By getting together and signing free trade agreements, what governments are doing is trying to avoid trade barriers or try to eliminate them. And that's called free trade. So some countries will, on occasion, sign trade agreements that exempt certain industries or wide ranges of products from protectionist measures. We call that free trade. So just to recap, trade can have negative distributional effects. Some industries will suffer because they will have threats from foreign competition, and the workers in those areas will get displaced. So to prevent that, governments want to protect their workers, they want to protect their industries, so they will use tariffs and subsidies, which are protectionist measures. They will use protectionism to try and prevent that foreign competition. It protects workers, ultimately it hurts consumers. Many countries try to pursue free trade agreements to do just that, to try and eliminate trading barriers to make goods cheaper for consumers.